Welcome to Kitchen Conversations. I'm your host, I'm Andrea, and we're recording this in the secret kitchen. And my guest today is the one and only Kathy Kimm.
Hi, Andrea.
We don't have an applause button.
That's okay. Or the canned applause.
Right.
It's okay.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. When you told me about starting this, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God, that's right up my alley.
Well, you are totally a kitchen person. I've known that since I've known you. And we are really lucky today because Kathy brought in some fabulous kitchen memorabilia, which stirs up all kinds of memories, old and new. We're going to get to talk about that today. But before we even get into all these goodies, let's just talk about, I'm curious, so where did it start for you, your love of cooking? How did you learn about it?
So I grew up in a big family, 4 daughters, and...
That's a big family.
Yeah, and granted, in my town I grew up in, there were families of 17, 18. So then it wasn't, now it is.
Okay.
But I always remember my grandparents being very good at cooking. They're Lithuanian, both of them are Lithuanian. And this was my mother's parents, and they always had, there was always a plate of fried chicken that my grandfather would cook. We stuffed our own kielbasa for the family holidays. We, they made things like apple pie and stuff like that. My grandfather even ground his own horseradish. So
did they live in a rural area?
No, they lived when they moved from Pennsylvania.
Thinking,
so they came from Lithuania. They lived in Pennsylvania. He worked in the coal mines. But then my grandmother, when they had their first child, my mother was like, no, we can't keep that up. So they moved here to New Jersey, and they were living I think they lived in Elizabeth initially, because I remember my mother saying she went to school at Baton, which is a all-girls school in Elizabeth. And he worked for Procter & Gamble and for the rest of his career. And they I guess maybe some of it came back from their families and being in Pennsylvania. They had a garden in their backyard in Roselle. I remember that. But that's kind of, I guess it came from their generation. Put it this way, my mother's 92. Mm-hmm. So my grandparents, God rest their souls, if they were still alive, would be, I don't know, 120, something like that.
Yeah.
Actually, probably a little bit less. But, so I always remember them cooking. My mother was never a fan, but her mother said, if you like to eat, you'll learn to cook. And she didn't learn to cook until she was married.
Yeah.
And that's when she first started cooking. And she had her go-tos, and she had some great stuff that she cooked. But she was never a fan, and she would be always telling us to, go ahead, go cook. And my one sister and I...
telling you and your sisters.
Yes.
Go ahead, do it.
Yes. So so there's 4 of us. Myself and we call her the middle sister, because the other 2 are Irish twins. They're 1 week less than a year apart. Mm-hmm. Myself and my middle sister, she and I were the ones that took the most into cooking. And she still blows me away, hands down. But it was really a self-taught kind of thing.
What would be a typical dinner that your mother might have cooked that was memorable because it was great? Or that it was memorable because it not so great?
So one of the dishes I remember that nobody makes today was she would make peppered steak, but it's kind of different than peppered steak today.
Okay, yeah.
So it was always that, I don't know what that cut of meat is, but it's like the beef patty that's not quite ground beef. Okay. And we had an electric frying pan.
Okay.
And it was tomatoes. It was that tomato sauce with peppers on it and mozzarella cheese. And she did it in the electric frying pan. Or one of her great ones was her roasted pork with lionized potatoes. The potatoes were like crack. You just couldn't stop eating them. So those were some of the go-tos that I remember my mom making. And then my dad was always the griller.
Oh, yes. Men were grillers. Yes.
He was he was worse than he thought he was. And they had a big thing about parboiling their chicken and their ribs.
Oh, and
then they put sauce on, and then they put them on the grill, and then the grill would burn the sauce, and then that was kind of their thing.
I have heard that. But I've never experienced it.
It's not the greatest. My husband, hands down, is much better at the
chicken. And then putting it on the grill.
Chicken parts. My father would never have cooked the whole chicken.
Ooh, that's a strange thing. Don't try that at home.
No, and so some of what I learned from their mistakes.
Yes. Yes.
all the different TV shows now are very helpful in learning things. My family is big, my husband's family, my extended family is big into cooking. My one brother-in-law actually went to the Culinary Institute for a while. So I always love when I can show him up on things.
I know. So what's maybe the first thing that you can remember that you cooked? We're going into the archives.
It's a while. It's a while back. I don't remember what I cooked growing up, like in the household and stuff like that. But I do remember, like, and when my friends and I were living together, like as roommates in college and stuff like that, like I would make chicken and I would get the Knorr sauce packets and use those.
Yes.
Those were always very good.
I remember those. Yeah, I can visualize that.
But as a older adult, and definitely not the first thing that I picked up. Like I taught myself how to make meatballs. I taught myself how to make, my father's family, the one thing that we brought from them was their Southern fried chicken recipe, which is very different. It's not deep fried. So that's one of the things that I learned to make from my dad. And that was something that my friends all liked. We went to the Poconos one year for New Year's and I made a huge pan of it. And I went to bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning, anytime early.
Yeah.
And I woke up the next morning and it was gone. And my boyfriend and my friends were like they literally like demolished it. Like,
because who doesn't like good fried chicken?
Exactly. So those are some of the things I remember. Even my roommate who is after college was hands down full bred Italian. I would make meatballs. And she would sit and watch me make meatballs. She would never make meatballs. So those were some of the things that I would make. And then I've just kind of built upon that. These days, my son's busy schedule kind of keeps me from being able to cook as much as I would like to. So the thing now is I really perfect my breakfasts because that's when the three of us, my family is always together now at breakfast. I like that.
Hey, breakfast is one of the best meals. So what would be a great breakfast?
So, and we've talked about this before, you and I, but my son is 11, but he's always had a very open eating style, which is great. We can take him all over the world, which he has done.
I'm going to say that, that's fabulous because so many kids are so picky.
Yeah.
And obviously that's...
Yeah, don't get me wrong, he loves his chicken fingers and fries.
Oh, yeah. But kids do. But he's got a much more sophisticated palate than a typical, even than some adults, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's thanks to, you and your husband.
He came home one day and said,
great.
Mom, some of my friends have never had grilled octopus.
Shocker.
And I'm like, you bougie little child.
Who is this kid?
I didn't have grilled octopus until I was 30.
I never heard of it.
Exactly.
When I was growing up.
Exactly.
Wow, that's crazy.
So like for breakfast, I like to make him breakfast. He likes, we'll do different kinds of pancakes. The other day I made lemon blueberry pancakes, which I saw you were cooking with lemons and blueberries the other day.
Blueberry compote.
Yes.
Anytime you take lemons and blueberries, I'm in.
Yes, exactly. So I did that for him the other day. He likes, when I was a kid, we went up to New York State for a wedding. And I remember going to a pancake house up there somewhere. And they made a Dutch baby pancake. Have you ever had Dutch babies?
Yes. Oh my God.
Where it rises and it falls in the middle and then you do. I'll make, on a special occasion, I'll make that for him. He loves my eggs. We call them egg in the nest. Some people call them egg in a hole.
Oh yeah.
And I like to make them.
We used to have that growing up. I remember
my mom
that.
used to make that for us too. And I think I prefer that a little bit more. But like, he'll have chorizo and sausage and bacon and any of those things.
So he's not going to sit down with a bowl of Rice Krispies.
Very rare. We don't do a lot of cereal in my house.
That's nice.
And once in a while he'll be in a mood for cereal, so he'll have it. But he's not. And I don't think I've ever bought him any child cereals. Mm-hmm. So
to your credit.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
I kind of like to see young people with sophisticated palates. Because I didn't really, I'm not going to say that I have the most sophisticated palate, but growing up, we never had, in my house there was salt and pepper, garlic powder, and I want to say onion powder. And honestly, I didn't even know, I never heard of olive oil Until I was married. Like olive, they make oil out of olives?
Yeah.
What?
Exactly. Versus like
Never heard of it.
we have truffle oil in our house.
Yeah.
Which my son loves on
You
his.
didn't grow up with that?
No.
No.
And my son loves the truffle oil on his fries
Oh, he is bougie.
with Parmesan. Yeah.
Good for him.
I know it's costly at times. We took him to. We went to Belmar to go to, and he's like, "Well, I want barbecue." And we said, "Well, we're going to take you to a better barbecue place." He's like, "Well," and he was giving us a hard time about it. Well, in Belmar now they have a Brazilian rodizio.
I don't know how to say it, but I know. Yeah.
Well, big fan he is now. Because they just come out and skewer meat out for you. And honestly, their best thing is their dessert pineapple. Have you ever had it?
Is it grilled? No, is it grilled?
So it's roasted, not necessarily grilled, and then it's rolled in cinnamon sugar. And so then they come and they shave it off at your dish.
You didn't bring any of that, did you?
No.
Wow, that sounds good.
And then after they're done shaving it at your plate, they'll bring it back in and they'll roll it again so that everybody gets cinnamon sugar.
So everybody gets it. That sounds great. By the way, we will be munching. We're munching on some pumpkin bread as we sit here.
Looks yummy.
Yes, well, the pumpkin bread, I'll tell you, is sort of like my signature thing.
Okay.
I don't know. Everyone who comes here, the Amazon driver, the UPS driver, everyone gets pumpkin bread. It's my thing. But listen, you brought some very cool things here. And I want to start with that guy right over there.
So this is actually, the two things I have here, like I said, so there's new family memories and there's old family memories. And all of them, I have a bunch of things that tie to food. So my husband's family, I think my husband and our love languages are food and our love for food. And his family is very tied into food. So when we went, my sister-in-law planned a trip pre-pandemic for us to go to Portugal. And we did Lisbon, Porto, and then we flew over to the Azores and did San Miguel. And we did some side trips and kind of all over the place. And everything was, with his family, the first thing you talk about in the morning is, what are we having for dinner? What's for dinner? What are we having for dinner? So it's always about trying to figure out, like, where are we going to have food and what kind of food can we have? So when we were in Portugal, one of the things that we noticed is that a lot of the restaurants, they brought to you tableside one of these little grills. So this is actually a grill. I just got it at one of the souvenir shops, but it's
hold
very...
Hold that up for the camera.
So it's very simple, and it's got, it looks a little kitschy because but it says, Asa Chorico Portugal. So chorico is chorizo, and chorizo is it's that spicy sausage, and most Spanish or Latin based countries have some form of chorizo.
Exactly.
So in Portugal, they bring it out on here, and they'll put a couple with some slices, like some little slices in them, and then they fill this well with alcohol. A very boozy alcohol.
It's a big well, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you don't fill it all the way up, but you definitely want to do like a quarter of an inch. So rum or bourbon or something like that. And then you light it on fire.
With the chorizo
on the top, and you grill the chorizo tableside with it. And
oh my God, that is awesome.
I bought it as a souvenir, and then we brought it home. And then during the pandemic, we all tried to do different things, and I was not home as much as most people were during the pandemic. So one night we decided to take this out, and we did grilled, and we had flames going, and it was fun. It's kind of nifty, and it's one of those things now when we think back to Portugal that we have those memories on. And I brought even the towel that I bought in Lisbon, which reminds me of the tiles in my kitchen.
Well, the gorgeous Portuguese tiles. I love that. Yeah.
They're just amazing.
So how did you not set your house on fire? I love
because it burns down. The alcohol burns off.
It burned down quickly? Okay.
So just like anybody who when you put alcohol in anything,
it's going to flame up.
It'll burn off. Okay. Even if it does, even if you put I make black bean soup, and in my black bean soup I always put a little bit of. I have a bottle of rum still from Dominican Republic that was made there, and I always put a little bit of rum in it. But if you cook it, the alcohol cooks off and just kind of leaves the flavoring behind.
And I've always wanted to do like a flambe something. I've never done it because I've always been like, oh God, I like my house.
Yeah, so this is not like that because we definitely put it on like a dish and it was.
But I love the idea. I think that.
And then we do it more outside, but yeah, we did do it inside that day. And
but that's pretty cool though.
So
that is so that's a new.
It's
memory.
not for children,
No,
but it's a new memory, and we love.
But that's a good one.
So, and that's kind of our family is we try to create those food memories. When we were in Italy with the same family group, we did a cooking class together. And so one of my favorite things now is to get my son to come in and cook with me. Sometimes I can. He did the other night. We did, oddly enough, we did chorizo, shrimp and grits, but polenta, and cream spinach. And so he made the shrimp.
I feel like cooking is a life skill. And, I mean, when I grew, my dad, I mean, I think he knew where the forks were kept, but honestly, I feel like that was the extent of it, and where the Rice Krispies were, because that was a favorite thing. He sometimes grilled, but, you know, it wasn't his thing. Just wasn't his thing. So I just think everyone should cook. When kids cook, it's the best. And, you know, I always say, you know, women love men who cook.
Yeah.
So men, learn to cook.
When my husband and I first met, it was very funny to his friends. He was in a fraternity in college, and he was the one that always cooked.
So he does cook, see?
Oh, yes, he does. Okay, he definitely does. But then we had them over for a party, and I was doing a lot of the stuff that they would have expected him to do, and they were a little nervous about it because they were like, but Glenn cooks.
I know. Can Kathy do this?
Yes. Yeah. So we ended up taking over tailgating at the Maryland football games, and that's where we actually, our best communication is when we're in the kitchen. We always have certain things that we do best, and that's the kitchen and the food. It is like a
language unto itself, right?
It is.
Now, so what does he cook? What's his specialty, your husband, Glenn?
Oh, he loves to grill.
Okay.
And he does an amazing, he'll do ribs, he'll do steaks on the grill. He has a smoker now, so he likes to smoke.
Wow.
Yes, he likes those types of things. And then from his family, we bring in kind of some of the Jewish culture, but I've actually picked up some of those as well. His family was not the most religious, but when his mother would be
not if you're making ribs, no.
Right, exactly, obvious.
I know that.
Or shrimp, or chorizo, or any of those things.
Right. Any of the above.
Yeah,
right.
But to me, the holidays and the food of the holidays are culturally important to him.
Yes.
As a person, and as, to his family as well. Right. So when his mother used to do Florida every winter when she was snowbirding. Right. My mother-in-law snowboarding would be funny.
Snowboards?
No.
Wow. Wow, I want to meet her.
No, not my mother-in-law.
Snowbirding.
Apologize for that, Edna. But when she'd be coming back close to the Passover holiday, a lot of times I would take over some of the responsibility of it. And, so one of the things we have in our house is the Seder plate.
And let me just say, it's a gorgeous one. So let's hold this up for the camera. I mean, if you don't know what a Seder plate is, Google it. Let me hold that up. A little higher. I'm listening to the cameraman. Got it? So this is an especially gorgeous one. First of all, it's Lenox. Mm-hmm. And in the typical Lenox, it's that gorgeous ivory color trimmed in gold. As my mother would always remind me, not for the dishwasher.
No, Lenox is not for the dishwasher. No.
But this is absolutely beautiful. And so this is a wonderful tradition to have a Passover plate like that.
And I believe it was his grandparents, not from his mother's side. Mm-hmm. I believe it was theirs, because we did get a bunch of stuff when they downsized, went to assisted living, and then, they eventually have passed as well. But I do believe that this one is specifically from his grandparents' side. So
this has seen years and years of use.
Yes.
On Passover, yeah.
Yes.
And so I have to share that. So seeing that you brought this piece of Lenox, so I have this Lenox pitcher. This is from my mom, and it is my one and only piece of Lenox that I held on to. I have never used it. But I couldn't part with it. My mom loved Lenox.
Yeah.
And
but you should put it to. You should take it out of the cabinet periodically.
I know. I should leave it out, because it is a beautiful.
You could even
picture.
do flowers in it.
You absolutely could put flowers in it.
I know you get nervous about some of those things because you don't want it to break. But
I know, that's true. But you know what? Can't take it with you.
Right.
And it's true that these beautiful things are meant to be enjoyed.
Exactly.
And I grew up with a lot of things sort of behind, shuttered away, like don't touch it, it's for company.
Did your mom put plastic on her her couches?
That's the one thing. But my in-laws did.
My husband's friends.
Oh,
he's got friends where they were never allowed to sit on, they weren't even allowed to sit on the plastic couch. It was kind of funny.
But we did have a gate going into the living room. And now we always had a dog, and my mom always said, well, it's to keep the dog out. Years after the dog was gone, the gate never left. So I realized, well, it's to keep us out. So the living room, so I just felt like when I got older, anything that I had, I didn't want it to be so precious that I wouldn't use it. Because what's the fun of it?
Well, true.
You want to use your beautiful things for the holidays and, make your new memories. What memory do you make when it's behind closed doors?
Very true.
So I like that everything is still being used. And I had that fear of, if it breaks, I'm screwed.
So I will say that when I have Passover, I have 2 different styles of Passover that I do. I have a more farm feel one, and it goes along with a Seder plate that I bought for my husband very early on when we were dating. Which his family still laughs at me about because I bought it for him, oddly enough, as a Hanukkah gift.
Oh, a Seder plate for Hanukkah.
But they had it at Home Goods.
Of course they did.
Of course they did, because you put all your Judaica out at Hanukkah, and everything has the Star of David on it, whether it's Passover or whatever.
That's true. That's true.
I did understand that it was not for Hanukkah. They didn't believe I understood that because I'm just the shiksa, so. But then I have the fancier one where I have the gold tablecloths, and we use that one.
Yes.
So, but my mother-in-law's been doing it, and it's been interesting because the one year I decided to do the matzo ball soup. Mm-hmm. And I spent the entire day making the chicken stock with 3 whole chickens and whole onions and everything else like that, and going through everything and trying to figure out how to make this stock and everything else like that. And my mother-in-law goes, I buy a box and use soup grease.
God. Right out the window.
However, I have perfected rendering out the fat so that you have the
schmaltz?
The schmaltz. Schmaltz. First of all, you've never had a good matzo ball unless you've had a matzo ball with schmaltz in it.
And there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
There is a lot of truth to that.
And then I also make the gribbinus.
Wow. I haven't even heard that word
it's patience.
Since I was a kid. My mom used to always.
Patience.
But yeah. Tell everyone what that is, because I bet
so
a lot of people don't know.
gribbinus is you take the chicken skin, and as you're rendering
the healthy part. The healthy part.
Schmaltz and chicken skin and gribbinus are not healthy, but they're yummy. So it's like it comes out almost like a bacon kind of thing.
Crispy like bacon.
Yes, but you render the fat off and then you slowly cook it. And the gribbinus is the crispy skin. So what I did was I peeled a lot of this.
Slow.
Yes,
Right,
I peeled a lot of the skin off as I was making the stock because I didn't want so much fat in the stock because we have to add it later so that it's special. And then you render out the schmaltz. And then you continue to fry off the gribbinus, which is the skin.
So do you just put it in the frying pan?
And just slowly.
And it's like bacon in a sense.
And then you got to add some salt to it or else it's not going to.
Well, you got to.
Because you got to have the salt.
Of course.
So.
OMG, gribbinus.
Yes.
Wow. That's a memory right there.
I'm not a bad shiksa. I understand how to do it. Because I had Judaism in my family too. We had some of my father's side of the family we're a very multi-ethnic, multicultural family.
I just find that so much more interesting, diversity. But I remember, so as a kid, my mom made gribbinus. I mean, that was normal. Mm-hmm. But as an adult, I remember her saying, I can't believe I ate that. Don't tell my doctor. But really, chicken fat, come on, few things better.
And I found somebody
it's
years
terrible,
ago
but it's true.
That actually 2 guys out of New York who actually had a whole schmaltz line.
Oh my God.
And they had duck schmaltz and chicken
Yeah,
schmaltz
yeah,
and
you
like
would.
any of the birds.
Any of the birds.
Any of the
Right,
birds.
Right.
I guess you could kind of do it with pork, but it's...
Turkey, schmaltz, I suppose. All of any. It's fat. It's chicken fat.
I will have to say, I am known for... So I've started baking my bacon now instead of cooking in the frying pan.
Yeah,
It's easier, less messy kind of thing.
True.
And you can do more at one time. But then it's also wonderful for rendering the fat. And I do keep that fat, and I use it in like my black bean soup, and I use it in a variety of different things. So nothing going wrong there.
No, I know.
So
Well, listen, we've got another thing that I just cannot believe that you. So everyone knows what a Dutch oven is, but where do you see this Dutch oven? This is.
want me to grab it?
Yes, this is amazing.
So
This is truly amazing.
when Andrea asked me to come over and she told me the premise of this is to talk about kitchen memories. So I started pulling some things out, but this was the first thing that came to my
You
mind.
exceeded my expectations. Let me tell you that with what you brought. But this is
People laugh about how I like to kind of prepare things in my head and in my brain and in my world. So, so this was a Dutch oven that I grew up with. It's very interesting. It's aluminum based, but it is one that I remember my mother making pot roast in. And
you know what?
you can slide that on top of the.
Yep.
It's okay if you put it on the Seder plate.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this pumpkin bread on the Seder plate. Let's make a little room on the table. Okay.
Can we take the picture out of it?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Whoops. Put that on the floor.
Put
We're
that
just
down there.
rearranging. Don't mind us.
So
Amazing. Look
So
at
this
thing.
pot, and I have another Dutch oven. My husband bought me a La Creuset, which is a longer one. It's beautiful. And I could tell you a funny story about that one too. But this was one that I grew up with. You can see all the love in it because of all the markings. And
This was your mom or your grandmother?
so I only remember it from my mother, but I believe it went back to my grandmother. I think that's kind of where it went back from. But I do remember growing up with it and my family cooking in it. My mother would make pot roast in it. The other thing she would make in it would be roast loin of pork. And then she called them lyonnaise potatoes. But basically she would just throw cut up potatoes in the bottom and let them just roast down into the pork fat. And they got this nice crispy bottom. So that's one thing about like
Pork schmaltz.
pork schmaltz. But a lot of people don't understand, depending upon like what you're cooking, you need different types of heating surfaces because the different type of heating surfaces
Right.
give you the ability to either brown or not brown with
That's right.
fat, brown
That's right.
without fat,
Yeah.
burn stuff. Like that's the whole thing, is trying to understand how all these things work together. And that's the fascinating part I
Let's
find
just take the top off. so
to
everybody-
that's the fascinating part that I find about cooking and the science behind it and all of it that works kind of together.
You can just look in here and see years of love in cooking. Honestly, you are so lucky to have this. I mean, really, this to me is
So when my parents,
Everything.
when my father passed, well, my parents moved from their house in Cranford, so they downsized once there, and then my father passed away, and they downsized from the house that they were living, the retirement community they were living in. My mother is now living in a memory care facility, but when we've done all these downsizing, one of the things my sisters and I always did was kind of go through stuff. And my other sister has what we call the potato salad bowl. And it was the bowl that my grandparents always made the potato salad in every holiday. And then she also has the pickled beets bowl, which growing up I would never touch a pickled beet, and now I love beets.
But you know the vessel makes it special.
Well, and that's it. And like, God forbid we put something in something else.
Yes.
You know, it's like, no, that dish goes in this and that dish goes in that.
I totally get that. Yeah.
And we're very lucky to have those things that we were able to keep and remember
God, you are.
and kind of continue to use today. So there are things, and it's hard when something breaks or something like that, or you miss a piece of something.
This isn't going to break.
This is not going to break. But when I was talking earlier about the, my mom used to use this electric frying pan, and I have the frying pan, I have the lid. I don't have the coil that plugs into it. So I've been searching for it somewhere on Facebook Marketplace, eBay, or whatever.
You might find it. You kind of never know.
But I like to make those things for my son and kind of talk to him about it.
I still have a couple of pieces of Corningware that my mother used to use in that cornflower blue.
I have those. I have the tray. Don't ever drop. The thing is you remember those were sold because they were not breakable.
Yes.
But if they ever did break, did you ever have one break?
Many things broke.
So whenever they did break, if you remember, they shattered into a million pieces.
They did.
So that was one of the crazy
That's true.
things.
They did. It wasn't like a piece just broke off and you could crazy glue it together. It was now garbage. Yeah.
But it's hard. It's hard to let go of some of those.
Yeah. I felt like when I'm cooking in that piece of Corningware, like it's like what my mom cooked in it. When my mom, she cooked every night. We didn't go out to eat, but she didn't love it.
Yeah, that was my mom.
She had to do it. It's like,
she had to do it.
These people want dinner. I guess I better. Better get in the kitchen and start cooking.
And I still have some pieces in my kitchen of I have a few pieces of the dishware that my husband grew up with, which were very 70s. They're actually octagons. I think they're octagons.
The plate?
I think they've got 8 sides to
all right,
them.
that's an octagon, yeah.
And they've got a nice deep well. They're really good for if you're having a dinner salad, not a salad on the side, but actually a meal salad.
Yeah.
They're good for things like that. They're good for spaghetti because they've got a little bit of well. So I've got a wide variety of things in my kitchen and I keep collecting, which is terrible because I have a hard time giving up kitchen stuff.
Yeah, I get that for sure. But I feel like it's a special thing to hold on to these kitchen memories because then you can pass it on to Max.
Right.
Someday. I mean, this isn't going anywhere.
No, this isn't going anywhere. It's well
the most
made.
Amazing thing ever.
It doesn't have any of the plastic handles or anything, and I love it. And I use it for different things. It's really good for chicken and dumplings. I've made that in there. I do make my black bean soup in there. I do make a couple of other things in there. My La Crusade is a little bit different. I use that for different things as well. But the funny thing about so this is a funny story about my La Crusade. When my husband bought it for me,
so the old and the new.
And the new.
Yes.
So the other thing is this one is actually not a ton of bricks.
No, it
it's
isn't.
Actually fairly,
I was noticing that.
But a La Crusade, unless you do a weekly workout in your arms, you can't use it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So my husband got me one for Christmas one year, and he goes to the La Crusade outlet in Tinton Falls. And he's looking at different pieces and stuff like that. And they're not inexpensive pieces by any stretch of the imagination, but
even at the outlet, it's still crazy.
Well, because their outlets are not really outlets; they're just stores. But they have, So the woman says, "Well, I have this one." She's like, "Is she actually going to cook in it?" And I'm thinking to myself, who spends $300 on a piece of cookware
to just have it sit there?
Not cook in it? And she goes, "Because this one has a nick in it, so we'll give it to you at a reduced price. But if she's going to use it just for decoration," I'm sitting there thinking, what?
Yeah.
So my husband's like, "No, she's gonna cook in it. Yeah, it's worn. It's got the cookware in it. It's got the cooking pieces in it and stuff." And so I was like, but that was just so funny to me.
Like somebody would have it as just a collectible, I suppose.
I guess so. I guess there are some.
What fun is that? For me, the fun of having it is because I'm going to use it.
Well, especially cookware. Yeah. Now, dishware, I can get
that's different. That's different.
That was made for generational use.
Oh, this is like a cast iron skillet, which you can pass on through the generations. I mean, this is the most extraordinary thing. Let me tell you, when I was growing up, I never even heard of a Dutch oven. I didn't know what that was.
Okay.
We didn't have one because I guess my mom had what we called a soup pot, and it was just a soup pot. But I never saw anything like this, probably until well into being married.
Okay.
It was interesting to me, what is that exactly?
Yeah,
this term Dutch oven. Now I cannot imagine not having one.
Right. Well, because to me, a lot of times, a lot of people make things in slow cookers and the Instapot and stuff like that. And yes, it's more the timing of a slow cooker than it is an Instapot. Instapot does things very quickly. I still have one of those.
I don't have an Instapot. I don't have a slow cooker.
But most of what I would do in a slow cooker, I'll do
in the Dutch oven?
In the Dutch ovens.
There you go.
I'll do that. You know, the slow cooker, I'm not one of those people that's as prepared where like I'll cut everything up at night and then it'll just turn on and it'll be done in the morning. Before I had a child, maybe I was a little more prepared that way. But
good for everyone out there who is that organized and does that. So they come home and dinner's ready. I'm like rummaging around, like, what am I going to defrost? But that's okay. That's okay. Everyone does their own thing.
I have my hopes and dreams every week that I'm going to be, and I do. If it's a busier week, I try to be a little bit more prepared to get kind of some of those things together, so that we're not eating out every single night. But the older my son gets, the more busy our schedule gets with him and baseball games and football games and everything else like that. So, like I shared with you, my big thing is to make sure at least we have that solid breakfast every morning.
Listen, if you have even one meal together every day, I think that's great. I really do.
Yeah, it's important because that's where you have that time and that's where you're able to talk a little bit and let some of your guard down and have those conversations. So that's always, and I always make sure.
We have dinner together, but I think it's great that you have breakfast together.
We do. Well, these days he's eating more of the breakfast than I am, but.
That's okay. That counts.
But I haven't put his phone down. We talk about what the day's going to look like. Yeah. We kind of have that.
So it's funny, not with the day. What was your day like? You're like, well, what will your day be like?
Yes.
You're looking ahead, not backwards.
Yeah.
See, that's cool.
Well, he's always funny because he's always like, well, why do you always want to know how my day was?
Because moms want to know.
I'm like, because I don't see you all day. And, that's kind of what I need to do. So,
yeah.
But, so that's kind of.
Great memory here.
We love our food memories in my family, and we love making new food memories in my family. So,
and that's the thing. I think everyone who's listening gets the idea that in every family there are things like this, and you should take them to heart. You should cherish them.
I think some people take it for granted that it's there and always there. And like I said, it wasn't until I started thinking about this conversation with you that I started thinking about the food memories. And, we've got. With my husband's family, we've done we went to Italy. We learned how to make pasta. So then we went back to Boston, and one night, and my brother and my nephew from my side of the family actually was going to school there at the time, and he came over one night for dinner, and we made pasta one night, and we made gnocchi another night. From scratch. Awesome. Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Yep, all from scratch because we learned it in Italy. And then my niece's one year, her birthday party, and my brother-in-law is very funny, the one who went to the Culinary Institute. You can't find all but one measuring cup in his entire house, and you can't find any measuring spoons. He doesn't
need them?
I don't know. So we did that year. We came up for my niece's birthday, and they decided to do a cooking competition birthday party for my niece.
Wow, that's different.
It was. The idea was really awesome. It was very interesting to kind of pull it off together. It was a lot of work because he took one team and I took another team. And we each had two teams.
Oh my God.
But it was fun. It was really a lot of fun. Like each team had to make, so you had the 4 teams and, 2 teams were mine and 2 teams were his. And each of the 2 teams on each side, one had to make a savory breakfast and one had to make a sweet breakfast. And so we were doing pancakes and we were doing French toast and we had electric griddles out.
Oh my God.
But
that's quite a birthday.
Try to make pancakes without, they had one measuring cup that was all the measurings were mostly worn off and it was partially melted.
Oh God.
But it was a lot of fun. And so again, with my husband's family, a lot of it goes back to cooking together. But even with my family, we go back to cooking together. And, sometimes you have to pivot and turn a little. My sister is now, God bless her, she's now gluten-free and dairy-free.
That's a little more challenging.
So we've had
Definitely
to pivot.
More challenging.
And her house is always where we would do our Christmas cookie baking. So this year, our first one back together after the pandemic, we each had to do, so the cookies that were not gluten-free, we each had to cook at our own homes and bring together
Okay.
and trade. And then at her house, we did all the gluten-free ones because she's really hypersensitive to it. So even the flour in the air or on her counter
Right,
would
of course,
cause her
of course.
some problems. So, but I still, those are the memories. And interestingly enough, my sister's one friend, her daughter grew up with us doing the cookie baking every year. And so this year she researched a lot of the gluten-free stuff so that she could still continue. Her mother didn't make it this year.
Well,
She made it on her own.
I think that's great.
And now she's getting married. And so what we all did for her shower gift was we put together a whole kit of Christmas cookie baking stuff that she could enjoy with her family.
So the thing is that regardless of whatever your dietary needs might be, you can still you should still be cooking and doing things and experimenting and learning how to do things in a different way.
Well, that's it.
There's no excuse whether you're gluten free or not. I have two brothers. One, my younger brother and his wife now are vegans. Try having a vegan Passover.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one.
It's different. It's different. But you know what? I like to be inclusive, and I would always cook something that anybody would eat. I don't ever say, "Well, this is only for the vegans," or "This is only for you have diabetes," or "You have this." No, I like to make things that everybody can enjoy.
Right.
And I feel like that's part of the challenge of being a home cook. You should be able to.
Well, exactly. That's where you need to kind of say, all right, well, I'm not going to dumb it down for them. I'm not going to make it,
You don't have to.
Well, and these days it's a little bit easier because you can definitely find more gluten-free items.
There's so many ingredients that we can buy now that, honestly, we never had when we were growing up. So I feel like we can do just about anything.
But I have this whole theory that they also didn't include gluten in as much stuff when we were growing up. Because it's definitely, I think, more of a filler in a lot of items these days. But yeah, it's much easier to find those things and to kind of put them together. My sister did back out of Thanksgiving this year because she felt that it was just going to be too much on me to kind of meet those needs.
Okay, well.
So, because Glenn and my husband and I always have Thanksgiving since it's a secular holiday.
Right, exactly.
And we invite both families. And then we do, Passover and all of that with his mom and his family. And then we do Christmas with my family.
It's a non-secular holiday.
Yes. Sorry, non-secular.
No, it's like, wait a minute. Did I
say non-secular?
No, you said secular.
I meant non-secular. Yes,
Secular.
non-religious.
Got it.
Ecumenical.
There you go. It was one of those things that we could, again, and his mom has certain things that she makes. We always end up with two different types of sweet potatoes at my Thanksgiving. Because his mom always makes a sweet potato pie.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad was always known for making the candied sweet potatoes.
Oh, my mother with the marshmallows.
Oh.
Yeah.
Put it this way, there's not a wonder why my dad was diabetic later in life. It was not just marshmallows, it was Cairo syrup, and it was truly candied sweet potatoes.
Yes. My mom did it that way too. I never liked sweet potatoes when I was younger because that's how I only saw them served with marshmallows on them.
Well,
I thought, it didn't occur to me that you could eat them without.
Exactly.
Because I never saw a sweet potato without a marshmallow on it, ever.
Along the lines where I never used to eat asparagus until I was about 30 years old because my mother only made it canned.
Oh, well, yeah.
And it still makes me gag a little, thinking of canned, overcooked asparagus.
Vegetables growing up were those blocks of frozen, I don't know, do they still even have them, but it was frozen veggies. And I could visualize my mother putting it in a Corningware little saucepan, pouring boiling water on it.
Okay.
And then boiling it. No wonder I didn't like vegetables.
Oh, yeah, we had the canned.
But that's how, or canned. Canned, yeah.
We would have some, so we did eat zucchini growing up.
From the garden?
Because my dad would grow it.
Oh, okay, well then that's,
Giant ones. And I get so frustrated now because I can't grow zucchini in my home garden because and it took me a while to figure this out, I have a sprinkler system. And with zucchini, you have to water from underneath.
Oh, and the sprinkler, of course, is
Right,
on the
because what
top.
happens is it'll grow and then it gets the big leaves and
Yeah.
then it traps all the moisture underneath and it rots out.
And it rots, yep.
So it took me several years
But you got it.
of killing zucchini plants to realize that I can't grow zucchini in my garden. So I stick with tomatoes. I only do hot peppers because for some reason I can never get bell peppers to work, and cucumbers. That's my garden go-to. But my dad, he was phenomenal at growing zucchini, and my sister mastered zucchini bread.
Oh, well, that's similar to
So,
pumpkin bread.
yes.
In a way, similar. Yeah, zucchini bread. Yeah, I used to make that too. Yeah.
We had a, and that was another thing that I could have brought, which I didn't think about it, but we have a bunch of cookbooks that we grew up with too. And one of them was from the Garden State.
Oh, yes, cookbooks.
Yep. Now you Google everything.
Well, that's
But
right.
I still have this thing for cookbooks.
I got rid of actually most of my cookbooks because you're right. I just Google it. And then I didn't have a place where do I put them all?
Yeah.
So I said goodbye cookbooks.
I know.
Hello Google. Hello Food Network.
Yeah,
all that jazz.
it's and I still love my cookbooks. There's certain ones that we still have earmarked and stuff. My grandmother on my dad's side, she was actually my step grandmother because his mother died very, very young. So she worked for the Prudential. Mm-hmm. She worked for the Pru, and they did a cookbook of, and this is how far back this goes. Prudential had an executive dining room at their corporate
back in the
offices
day.
back in the day.
Yeah.
So they created a cookbook from the recipes from their corporate executive dining room.
Oh,
And I saw,
all right.
it's not a big one. It's like
Yeah,
about this
yeah.
big, but the pages are all yellowed. And that's where my apple crisp recipe comes from. That's where where I first started doing mac and cheese from. I've tweaked it from there, but I do that with all my recipes. As I find when I want to cook something, as I look at a bunch of different recipes and I kind of, I like a little bit of that and I like a little bit of that. That's why I'm more of a cook than I am a baker. Baker
So
is too exact.
last thing I have to tell you this. So mac and cheese. We never had mac and cheese ever. I never even heard the expression mac and cheese.
Really?
So my mother used to make what she called noodles and cheese, or Jewish fettuccine. I can't believe it. And it was egg noodles, probably a buttered egg noodles with cottage cheese.
Oh, but that's very like, those are all kind of Jewish kind of
Yeah,
go-tos.
I guess so. But that was noodles and cheese.
Isn't there a Yiddish name for that or something?
Jewish fettuccine is what my mother called it. But so then, what is mac and cheese? Well, it's a strange thing, and maybe it was like her version of a noodle kugel, or I don't know, I don't know what. But
Right.
Noodles and cheese. Oh, we're having noodles and cheese. It was like the greatest. But then I didn't know what mac and cheese was. I know
yeah.
it's all growing up, strange things.
See, my
Strange
father
things.
was Southern. Like his family is from North Carolina, so mac and cheese was kind of a big deal there. And it's
Well-
very interesting because my son, is, he's adopted and he's Colombian and Black. And so I'm always trying to research cultural things for him. He definitely comes by his Colombian side naturally. He loves a good cup of coffee. He definitely will eat any
my
kind
God,
of bean.
that's
Like
wild.
he leans in, like when he was little, I used to make beans with any kind of vegetable, cut it to him, and he would eat it. And he still loves his beans with black beans, white beans, you name it. He'll eat his beans. But like we kind of research into kind of some of the
That's
different
great.
types of cultural foods
Yeah,
too.
that's good.
And try to make sure that we're meeting those. And again, it's not too different because some of the cultural foods that, would come from the Black side of his family, which was kind of not, because from what we understand, his dad was also adopted to a Colombian family. I don't know, it's a whole talk about finding them.
You are truly multicultural.
We are. My brother-in-law's Chinese. So
see, there you go.
we'll throw that
There you
one
go.
in there into the mix. So yeah, we kind of check a lot of boxes. I have a brother-in-law that's very Italian. We have the brother-in-law that's Chinese. My husband's Jewish, but he's also adopted, so that's a whole different
I just think
world.
it just makes the whole cooking experience all the more interesting.
And it makes the meal, and it is. It always makes the holidays different.
Right.
And
I like
you know,
diversity. I didn't grow up that way, but I like diversity. I think it's so much more interesting.
I don't think our generations are closer than I think you think they are, and I don't think that was really, there wasn't a lot of diversity. You kind of stuck to your own, wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I remember eating a little bit of Chinese food when I was
wait a minute.
a kid.
Being Jewish, Chinese food.
Well, yes, that's Christmas.
That was like Christmas. Yeah.
Well,
And
Christmas.
if we went out more often than not, it would be like Chinese food.
Yeah.
It's a Jewish thing. I know it's crazy. Jews and Chinese.
We
food.
do. So my husband,
But always on Christmas.
my husband always harasses me that I took Jewish Christmas away from him. So we do Jewish Christmas on Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve is Jewish Christmas for him. We always go out for Chinese or take in.
okay.
But usually
Got
we
it.
go out. We usually go out to. It's up in Marlboro. I can't think of the name of it. Near where he grew up, and then we go out to the movies. And that's our go-to Christmas Eve now.
Well, a lot of times on Christmas we went to the movies too.
Yeah.
It's strange, very
Yes.
strange, but not strange. Very familiar.
Yes, it's a cultural thing. And that's kind of, what we do to kind of incorporate some
Yes.
of what he wants and some of what he
Absolutely.
remembers to kind of tie that in. But yeah, it's always an interesting mix in our household.
Well, I feel like every household has their own story, and I appreciate you sharing yours.
Oh, I could go on for hours, but thank you.
We might have to do a part 2.
I think so. I could bring more stuff.
Well, Kathy, thank you so much for coming into the Secret Kitchen and sharing kitchen conversations.
See, we didn't even get to eat because we talked so
I
much.
know, we talked, we'll eat later, I promise you that. So thank you for tuning in today and listening, and please like and subscribe. And we will see you next time on Kitchen Conversations. Bye, everyone.
Bye.